What's going on, my boys? It's Nick, coming at you today on the channel with a combo tutorial and test hand video for the recent Eldlich Dinomorphia Numeron Egyptian God deck that I uploaded on my channel about a week ago. Yes, you heard that correctly. This is a deck that I built. It's a 42 card constructed deck designed to abuse not only Obelisk, but the two new cards that he received out of the most recent Megatins this past year, and that is the Breaking Ruin God and Soul Energy Max. Obelisk has been one of my favorite Egyptian gods for a long time, just so iconic with the anime, and I know a lot of people share fond memories just as much as I do with the card, and I wanted to build a deck that utilized Obelisk, especially being able to utilize the new spell and trap. There was just one problem with that. It was pretty difficult to find a deck that was not only able to facilitate summoning Obelisk, but also putting extra material on board to be able to utilize cards such as Soul Energy Max, which, if you don't know, while you control an Obelisk, you can activate this card, tributing 2 monsters you control to nuke the opponent's board and burn them for 4,000 damage. Absolutely insane. And then the Breaking Ruin God, obviously, it's designed to special the Obelisk, which is really insane, something that all the Egyptian gods, in my opinion, really need. But just summoning Obelisk alone isn't enough. Like, you also need a deck that could produce other monsters on board, giving you the tribute fodder required to activate Energy Max. So that's when I started thinking, and ultimately, as crazy as it sounds, I came up with the Eldlich, Dinomorphia, and Numeron package, combining all those together to form the deck that you see before you. Now, for those of you who haven't seen the deck profile, I highly encourage that you do so. I will leave a link in the profile description down below. Feel free to check out that video when you get a chance, like as well, and comment what you think. If you're watching this video now and you haven't already subscribed, shame on you. I put out a lot of crazy cool content, and I'm sure a lot of my viewers will agree that I'm one of the few Yu-Gi-Tubers who comes up with the stuff that I bring to the channel. This is some very based and really five-head stuff. And like I said, if you enjoy Yu-Gi-Oh! Like I do, and you guys like some of the more crazy off-the-wall type stuff, then this channel is perfect for you. Absolutely perfect. So without further ado, my name's Nick. We do live duel videos, deck profiles, deck discussions, and other things of that nature. Like I said, if you haven't hit that subscribe button, please help me get to that 1,000 subscriber benchmark by this year. And I will continue bringing you guys really strong Yu-Gi-Oh! Content. I have tons of things in the work post-Photon Hypernova, and I cannot wait to bring you guys updates to not only my Evil Eye Labyrinth deck, but my Ninja Crawler deck. Spriggans will be making its return to the channel, as well as a bunch of other new decks that I'll be bringing to you guys post-Photon Hypernova. So with that being said, we're going to dive into this test hand video and combo tutorial. And like I said, for those of you who aren't privy to this, I really just wanted to build a deck that could not only facilitate summoning Obelisk as often as possible, but utilize both these crazy spell and trap card to the best of their ability. So with that being said, before we dive into the test hands, we're going to go down some combo lines. Now, this deck, for all intents and purpose, is a control deck. Now, the funny thing about control decks is that there really isn't a, like, quote-unquote combo line to show you. You know, it's pretty much just like set a bunch of back row pass, which that's the combo, right? Go figure. But there's a little bit more to it than that. So we're going to explain some of the engines that I'm running very quickly, so that way you guys can help understand like how this all actually comes together in the grand scheme of things. So something that I would really like to point out is this trap card, the Soul Energy Max. This card, like I said, the on-field effect is pretty nuts. While you control an Obelisk, you tribute 2 monsters to destroy all monsters your opponent controls and burn them for 4,000 damage. That's absolutely cracked. This card is a very unique graveyard effect in the sense that if this card is in the grave, at any point, you're able to banish, or not any point, but it's during the main or battle phase, you can banish this card to then search or add an Obelisk the Tormentor from the deck or graveyard to your hand. And if you do, you can immediately, after this effect resolves, normal summon it. Obviously, you need the tribute fodder, which would be 3 monsters on field, but the fact that you can literally put out an Obelisk the Tormentor on field during your opponent's turn is pretty nuts and very unexpected, given that he's a 4,000 beat stick that cannot be targeted by any card effects, which is crazy. Now, what's cool about this is there's a lot of ways to actually get the energy max into the graveyard. One of the easiest ways is to pitch it for cost off of your Eldlich effect, which is very useful for when you're going second. You're able to just like pitch Eldlich, pitch this for cost, and send any card on field to the graveyard. It does target, but this can proc out, negation. This procs back row. It just forces interaction out of your opponent. And if they don't have interaction, then they lose a card. But what's cool about this is that when you pitch the Eldlich and the Energy Max for cost, you could literally just banish Energy Max now to go ahead and search Obelisk from the deck or graveyard to your hand, which just adds an extra layer of consistency to this deck that previously wasn't there, because there wasn't many ways to search Obelisk without jumping through insane amounts of hoops, if you think about it. Not only that, but there's other ways to get Energy Max in the grave. You can also use cards like Forbidden Droplet as well, pitching the Energy Max for cost, and if you do, the opponent can't respond to the Droplet with traps, which is insane, and it's the same concept. As long as you get the Energy Max to grave, you're able to banish it to go ahead and search out your Obelisk the Tormentor from the deck or graveyard to your hand, like I said, adding that extra layer of consistency. Not to mention, when you have cards like Lord of the Heavenly Prison, to not only help insulate your back row from crazy blowouts like Lightning Storm and Harpy's Feather Duster, but when you factor in that you can set cards like Soul Energy Max and cards like the Breaking Ruin God directly from your deck to the field off of Heavenly Prison's effect, further increasing the consistency of you actually resolving these cards and getting Obelisk onto the board. So it's really insane when you think about it. And something else that I want to point out too is the Breaking Ruin God has a crazy secondary effect as well, where if you activate an effect that required you to tribute 2 or more monsters at the same time, you can banish this card from your graveyard to then banish all monsters out of your opponent's grave and burn them for 500 damage for each. Yes, you can go Energy Max, use the effect tributing 2 cards, and to nuke your opponent's board, burn them for 4 grand. Then, if you have Breaking Ruin God in your graveyard already, you can banish this to banish all their monsters out of their graveyard and burn them for 500 additional damage for each, after you've already burned them for 4,000. It's absolutely crazy how fun that actually is to pull off. So these are some of the lines that, again, I wanted to show you that where you can get Energy Max into the graveyard just to help boost the consistency of getting to Obelisk and getting to your trap, which ultimately gets you to Obelisk. No, go figure. Something else I want to point out, though, is, getting to Obelisk is just half the battle. Obelisk alone isn't going to be enough to thwart your opponent's plans and their plays, and that's why I decided to incorporate the Numeron as well as the Dinomorphia packages in here. Now, something to really consider is you have a card like Prairie Map. This card, at a surface glance, doesn't seem that broken. It just, at the start of your main phase 1, you add a monster with 0 attack from the deck to your hand, but then you have your life at resolution. That's important to note, because if this card gets ashed, you actually don't have your life, which is good. You don't just burn half your life for nothing. But what this card is designed to do is effectively add a copy of your Numeron Wall from the deck to your hand. And why is Numeron Wall important? Well, if you're going first or going second, and you have no other cards on field, you can just normal summon the wall, still respecting the restriction placed on you by Prairie Map. Activate Wall's effect, because it can trigger from hand or field, to go ahead and activate a Numeron network directly from your deck, which, obviously, if you guys are familiar with Numerons, you'll know pretty much how this works. You go ahead and activate the network from your deck, then you'll go Network Effect, dumping Calling for cost, to go ahead and summon out up to 4 Numeron Gate Xyz monsters with different names, and it just floods the board. And literally, you could have just started with the 1 Prairie Map, and you halved your life, and we'll get to why that's important in a bit, but you literally put 4 monsters on field for free. Now, what's cracked about this is that you just get 4 free summons. Now, you can either use 3 of these cards to hard summon the Obelisk, and just summon Obelisk right there, and boom, you got him on field already. Or, if you want to take it a step further, you can consolidate the 4 of these cards into a Link 4 play to go ahead and make a copy of Yugioh, to go ahead and utilize its full effects. Sorry for the glare, that's even worse. You make Yugioh, and then you utilize its full effects to go ahead and dig deeper into your deck, so you can find those pieces you need to complete your end board, those traps you're looking for. What you're really looking for most of the time is going to be Dinomorphia Frenzy. This card is the bread and butter of this deck, and it puts out one of the best boss monsters that the game has to offer currently. But not only that, not only do the Numerons provide you the material necessary to summon Obelisk or make a really cool Link 4 play, which fixes your hand, but they also functionally serve as really great draw power. Again, because at the end of the day, something that a control deck needs is card advantage, which it's difficult for control decks to put because inherently, like, they're not a combo deck, so they don't really add much things to their hand. But when you have the Numerons, you have access to the spell card known as Memories of Hope, which if you haven't read this card before, you can draw cards equal to the number exceeds monsters you control with different names. So if you go down your Numeron route and you have a copy of Memories of Hope in hand, you can activate this and literally draw 4 cards off the top of your deck. It's really crazy. It's like a double pot of greed. And then, if you're really greedy, you can still consolidate these into the Yugioh, where you'll proceed to draw 4 more cards and then put 3 back. So you've effectively dug 8 cards deep into your deck and then mulligan 3 back inside, kind of like getting, just basically fixing your whole hand and getting it to a point where you're really happy with. So it's overall really, really strong and just boosts the consistency that the deck has overall. So the Numeron package is obviously really, really strong for that. But then, again, it's what you're drawing into is what's important, and that's why we play the Dinomorphia package, and this is where things kind of get really insane. So we play 1 copy of Domain, and then we're on a playset of Frenzy. Now, the Frenzy, like I said, is the bread and butter here. You really want to get to Frenzy as quickly as possible. Domain is cool too, but the problem is that we're only playing a playset of Theresias and then 1 copy of Diplos, because we really don't want to draw them. We just want to send them from deck to grave off the effects of the trap. So opening these cards, it's fine, but it's not really like how you... So if you do open them, you can mulligan them back with Yugioh if you go into the Numeron play. So Domain is okay, because you have to send Diplos and Theresia, because Domain can only let you fuse from deck or field, which is fine, but the problem is that since we're only on 1 Diplos, it makes no sense to play multiples of Domain. So Domain is just like that 4th copy of Frenzy, just a little bit worse, because when you go down the Domain line, you don't actually end on Rexstrom plus Theresia, Rexstrom plus Kentragina. You'll just end on the Rexstrom minus the Ket, because you would have had to use the Kentragina as material for Rex, assuming Kentragina copies the effect of Domain out of grave, which we will explain. So like I said, the whole goal here is to go Frenzy. You activate Frenzy during the opponent's turn by, again, paying half your life and touching back on the Prairie Reese map. Again, Prairie Reese map halves your life to search that Numeron wall. Now, the reason why that's important, because you're probably thinking, doesn't that put me closer to death? Yes, it does. But the Dinomorphias, if you're familiar with them, have this really cool gimmick where the lower your life is, the better it is for you, because they really punish your opponent for having low life, which is so much fun. So generally, the goal here is to get access to Frenzy, go Frenzy effect, dumping a Theresia from deck, and then any one of your extra deck targets. In this case, we're going to go ahead and use a Stealth Bergia, and that's going to go ahead and make you a copy of Kentragina. Now, Kentragina hits the board, and Kentragina has the effect where it can, a quick effect, banish a Dinomorphia trap from grave. So in this case, if you use Frenzy, it would be Frenzy. So you banish that from grave, and then Kentragina's effect becomes the effect of Frenzy. So it's almost like you're getting 2 copies of Frenzy off in the same turn. So what you're going to do is you're going to fuse again, dumping another Theresia from deck, and then you're going to send another material from your extra deck. In this case, it could be another copy of Ket. I usually do this because I like keeping at least 1 Stealth Bergia in the deck in case I need to make this later. But now you're going to make Rexstrom. And at this point, if you were paying attention, you would have halved your life twice. 3 times, technically, if you opened with the Prairie Reese map. So if you didn't open Prairie Reese map, your life points already at this point would be 2,000 after resolving the Frenzy and resolving the Kentragina, assuming you were at 8k when that happened. However, if you resolve the Prairie Reese map, then assuming your life was at 8k, you would actually be at 1,000 life by the time you summon the Rexstrom. Now, Rexstrom is pretty much a walking skill drain on legs. While this card is on the field, he has a non-activated continuous effect that states, your opponent cannot activate the effects of monsters they control that have attack greater than or equal to my life. So now you can actually see why putting my life points so low is a beneficial to me, because the lower my life is, the less chances they have of activating monster effects on their board, which basically floodgates them out of the duel. Now, the reason why the Dinomorphia package is something that I settled on is because it's a package that plays in the opponent's turn, so it doesn't conflict with the Numeron line. It puts really big bodies on field, one of them being a walking skill drain, which is huge, and it floats upon destruction. But not only that, it's an engine that keeps generating free bodies. That way, if I do end up getting an Obelisk on field, and I have access 2 cards like Energy Max, I can just go Energy Max, tributing my 2 monsters here to blow up the opponent's board, burn them for game, and if it's not game, their board is now broken, so I can just use Obelisk to close things out with a direct attack. So that's kind of how this deck really works in the grand scheme. And then the reason why we sprinkle Eldlich in here is just for an additional engine that we have so we can summon more bodies on field. Obviously, Eldlich is just another free body, you know, and also functions as removal if he's in our hand and we're going second or trying to break a board. Also just getting in that extra damage. And he's just another card that can keep floating back into himself, effectively giving you like a recurable resource that even if you tribute it off using cards like Energy Max, you can just get the Eldlich back anyway and keep the pressure on the opponent. And then when you combine that with cards like Conquistador, where even on his own, he's just a free body, you can kind of see like the goal of this deck is to just put fodder on field for the Energy Max play. So with that being said, that's pretty much like some of the quote-unquote combos I wanted to discuss with you guys. So now what we're going to do is we're going to shuffle this bad boy up, and we're just going to do a test hand just so I can give you guys an example of what a test hand in this deck functionally looks like. So with that being said, I will go ahead and power shuffle very, very quickly. That way you guys can see that I'm not cheating. But like I said, guys, if you're new to the channel, my name is Nick. We do all kinds of cool Yu-Gi-Oh! Related content like this. So if these are things that you want to see and you're tired of like dealing with the meta and the tier 0 format, I highly encourage you to check out some of my other videos. Subscribe to my channel and like some of the stuff that you come across because it might actually be something that's up your alley. So with that being said, we have shuffled our deck here, and we are going to go ahead and start out with a test hand. I will go ahead and shuffle again just so you guys can see. We'll even cut, and we're going to lead things off. And in typical fashion on this channel, we do everything here live, no editing here. So if I brick, it's going to be pretty hilarious, and drawing calling is already pretty suboptimal. So it's a one-of. My luck with the one-ofs is unparalleled, but we also drew network. So you know what? This hand isn't even that bad. We drew calling, we drew Dinomorphia Domain, Heavenly Prison, Network, and a Called by the Grave, which is absolutely crucial to stop any pesky hand traps that might disrupt us. So since we opened the Network, we're going to go ahead and lead things off here with Network. Now, we're just going to go ahead and hard activate the calling directly from our hand because we hard drew it and we just play the one of. Again, the Numerons aren't designed to necessarily OTK the opponent. While they can, I don't play duplicates of all the Numerons because the goal of this deck isn't to Numeron your opponent turn after turn. It's really just to facilitate them to gain access into Obelisk or make the Yugioh line to dig deeper into the deck and fix the hand a bit. So we're going to hard activate calling from hand. Go ahead and summoning out all 4 of our Numeron boys. And that's going to be 4, 3, 1, and 2 to our side of the field. Now, in this case, we don't have Obelisk in hand, so we're not going to be able to obviously hard summon the Obelisk. But what we're going to do here is we're going to consolidate these for the link summon of our Yugioh Scaldred. And then also something, too, that I want to point out. If, for example, like one of our Numerons gets snuffed, or like Book of Moon, or destroyed, or bounce back to hand, or either like the opponent has a response, our fallback is actually going to be the Codebreaker Virus Swordsman. And the reason why this card is so good is because it's just a generic link 2 we can make using just 2 Numerons in the event that like one of them gets stopped, or Book of Moon or whatever, and we can't actually make the link 4. This card is cool because it's actually a really cool link 2 that can out cards like Baguska, which a lot of control decks tend to like struggle against, or I should say rogue decks. So because this card can actually beat over the Baguska given that he's 23. But not only that, this card, if he dies or gets destroyed by battle or card effect, it's a card that puts itself back on field, constantly giving us that free advantage and resource so we can use tribute fodder to summon Obelisk or use later for cards like Soul Energy Max. But anyway, side note there, we're just going to go ahead and activate the Yugioh effect to go ahead and draw 4 cards. Now again, if we get hand trapped here, like they Ash us or Veiler us, we had the Called by anyway because we're just that blessed. So we're going to draw a Droplet, draw a Conquistador, draw a Conquistador, and draw a Frenzy. Now this, my boys, is what we wanted to see. So now we're going to put 3 cards back. So what we're going to do is we're going to put one of the Conquistadors back. We're going to put the Domain back. And if we didn't get hand trapped here, at this point, we'll probably just put the Called by the Grave back. Put them on the bottom of the deck in any order. And now this is effectively our hand. So what we're going to do here is activate Heavenly Prison, revealing it to our opponent, preventing our set cards from being destroyed by card effects to the end of the next turn. And then we're going to go ahead and set Droplet, we're going to set Frenzy, and set Conquistador. And we're going to pass our turn, keeping the Heavenly Prison revealed in our hand, preventing our back row cards from getting blown out by something like a Duster, Lightning Storm, Twin Twisters, and things of that nature. So we're going to pass turn, opponent's going to draw. Now we're not going to shotgun anything. We're going to wait till they commit cards to field, and the reason for that is because we don't want our Dinomorphia Frenzy line to die to something like an Imperm. So we're going to wait till they commit something to field at least. And once they do, we're going to go Frenzy, pay half our life as cost, and then we're going to use Frenzy's effect, dumping. I guess in retrospect too, another thing, we could have kept the Called By in hand rather than keeping the Conch. And the reason for that here is because in case we go Frenzy and they try to Ash us, we could just Called By the Ash. So just something to also consider. But anyway, so we're going to go Frenzy effect, dumping Theresia from deck. And then we're going to go ahead and dump from our extra deck a Fusion monster. So we'll dump Stealth Bergia. And we're going to go ahead and make a Ketragina. And again, we wait till they commit a card on field. That way the Ketragina doesn't just hard lose to an Impermanence. Or a Veiler, well, Veiler I guess they can't use on their turn anyway, but you know what I mean. So we go Ketragina. Yugioh effect will trigger, giving Ketragina an additional 300 attack and defense, which is cool because that is permanent. And then again, we wait for them to commit a little more plays, or if we want to activate this right away, we go Ketragina effect, banishing the Frenzy out of grave, paying half of our life again. Assuming we were at 8,000, our life at this point would currently be 2,000 because we've already halved our points twice. So we're going to dump another Theresia from deck, because again, Ketragina copies the effect of Frenzy. We will dump a Ketragina, and this will allow us to make a Rexstrom. Again, Yugioh effect will trigger, giving our Rexstrom another 300 attack and defense boost, making it so that our Rexstrom is actually 3,300, and assuming that our life is at 2k, our opponent can no longer activate the effects of monsters they control that have 2,000 or more attack. And then if that wasn't enough, we can still go Heavenly Prison. Again, if we activate a set spell trap, we can go Heavenly Prison at Resolution, which is pretty insane. So even if we go Droplet, pitching like Network for cost to negate something, at Resolution of that, we can go Prison effect, and then Prison, because it was revealed when we specialed, can allow us to set any spell trap from our deck to hand. Or, I'm sorry, from deck to field, which could be something as, crazy as, we could set like Ferret Flames, for example, which, because our life is so low, we can literally just sweep the opponent's board and punish them for overcommitting. Keep in mind they're locked under a floodgate at this point. Ketragina's a 2,300 beater. Rexstrom's 3,300. Prison's 3,300. They had to play through a Droplet. They're still under a skill drain. And if we go Ferret Flames off the Prison, then we got also a Field Nuke. And then we still have the Conquistador just as an additional body to summon, plus our top deck for turn. So that's pretty much going to wrap up the combo tutorial test hand. I don't want to make this video too long, but you guys can kind of get the gist and already start seeing the lines of how this deck should be played. And it's pretty insane. Again, we weren't able to summon Obelisk with this hand, but you can still see the board we put out is more than enough to game the opponent. Like, that's already, and not to mention with Rexstrom's quick effect, being able to halve my life again, and then making the attack of all monsters the opponent controls equal to what my life is, we can steamroll over their entire board. And this is well over 8,000 damage combined. So, like I said, the deck can still OTK on a drop of a hat, and it puts out really, really cool boards, like I said. And then if we wanted to, too, off of the Heavenly Prison, we could even set something like a Scarlet Sanguine. Since we also had a Conquistador in the back row, we could just go ahead and hard set the Sanguine from deck, unlocking our Eldlich plays for us on the next turn, which would be pretty cool. And then we'd also have Eldlich on board in addition to everything else you see here. So like I said, the deck is just really cool. And then when we did get Eldlich to field, assuming we set a Sanguine, if we did get Eldlich on board, what would happen at that point is that allows us to go into stuff like the Super Dreadnought Gustav Max. And then, like, if the opponent, put up a board and we couldn't game them for some reason, we can just go into this, detach material, and burn them for the 2,000 for game. So just stuff like that. Like I said, the deck can still close out games extremely fast. And, yeah, that's pretty much it, guys, again, for the combo tutorial test hand. So if you like this video, I highly encourage that you give it a like, sub to the channel if you're watching this and you made it this far and you haven't subbed already. And like I said, just stay tuned. I'm going to be bringing you guys a lot of really cool content, like I said, for the channel. But this is going to be Nick, Signing off. You guys have a good evening, and we'll catch you on the next video.